talking about some Tommy Morrison. Dave, last time we talked to Tommy Morrison, I think it might have been his last radio interview ever. Right. Like we just said before we went to break, I'm a huge Tommy Morrison fan.
Mm-hmm.
I still have the Rocky V autographed DVD downstairs, and watched all the fights. And when we had him on, it was a crazy interview to say the least. There's a lot of things he said that were very controversial.
Right.
There's when he talked about teleporting himself. He talked about Magic Johnson being paid to say he had AIDS, that he really didn't have it, and that he himself did not have AIDS. So there's a lot of questions that are unanswered. There's been a lot of speculation of what happened in the last days of Tommy Morrison, but Tommy unfortunately had passed away, and it's been a few months now, and we reached out to his wife, Trisha, who is in the process of releasing some of his memoirs. He's been writing, I think, a series of books. I think there's 3 of them.
A trilogy.
2 of them now are available on TommyTheDukeMorrison.com. So without further ado, let's get her on the line. Her name is Trisha Morrison. Trisha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's got to be probably very difficult for you to talk about something so fresh in everyone's mind right now of the passing of Tommy Morrison, your husband. But we really do appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks very much. Actually, I remember the interview that you did with Tommy. We were in Tennessee and sitting on the porch, and he had a blast with your interview. The questions that people called in with, and he really enjoyed it. And when you guys reached out to me, I thought, I'm going to get on the phone to you and let you know exactly what happened. And he didn't have crazy ideas. I've been connecting the dots for him that he was collecting, and it's pretty shocking news that I can give you tonight.
So let's walk us through the last couple of months of Tommy's life. You know, I had heard different things. We read different news articles of what actually occurred. So give us the true story. What happened in the last couple of months of Tommy Morrison's life?
Well, really what happened in the last year and a half, after the interview he did with you guys, there was suddenly a fugitive warrant of arrest on him in Tennessee. And he got thrown into jail for a couple of weeks and then transferred to Wichita, Kansas. It was a fugitive warrant, a sealed warrant. We didn't know what it was until the judge opened up the warrant of arrest in Kansas, and it was a $50,000 bail, which makes Justin Bieber's $2,500 today look ridiculous, right? Yeah. So when finally I bailed Tommy out of jail, he came out of jail with a huge abscess to the side of his chest, and he was perfectly fine up until he got jailed. I took him to a doctor, had it drained, had a lot of staph infection. It was an insect bite. And finally he returned back to Tennessee, and we went to a surgeon down there, and he had a botched-up surgery. The surgeon left 12 foot of surgical gauze in his chest for over a week. God. Yeah, and this is a story that nobody hears about out there in the news. And it was done at Fort Sanders Hospital, and the surgeon's name is Dr. George Schuckman, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. So the home health lady came the next day, and she changed the wound bandage. He'd had that insect bite, which had infected the side of his chest, and for some stupid reason, well before my time, he had these implants put in there. Whether it was for a movie or whether he'd been talked into it, I don't know.
Oh, like chest implants?
Yeah. So the side of his chest got infected from this insect bite. So he had to have a lot of major and minor pec muscle removed from the chest, and that pec implant. And with 12 foot of surgical gauze being left inside his chest, it made his body go septic, and he went into septic shock. And so for the next year and a half, We were in and out of hospitals trying to get wound care, and all the doctors focused on HIV and his diagnosis in '96. You know, hey, you've got a history of HIV. You were kicked out of boxing in '96, and you know, that's what's wrong with you. And finally, you know, almost 8 months later, he was actually given a proper diagnosis of Miller-Fisher Guillain-Barré. And 1 in a million people get this. And, of course, Tommy was 1 in a million. You know, who else could be 2-time heavyweight champion of the world and Rocky V and doing all the stuff that he did? But he ended up with this true diagnosis. And Miller-Fisher basically affects your head and your eyes. You can't swallow, you can't talk, you can't eat, you can't breathe. And then the Guillain-Barré is from the neck down to the feet, and your body shuts down. So he wasn't dying of AIDS. He was actually physically sick with Miller-Fisher Guillain-Barré syndrome. So once he finally got treatment for that, it was too late. And, you know, whoever's listening may think, well, you know, she's in denial. But let me tell you the dots that I've connected since December 21 of this year. And the Vegas doctor, the one that kicked him out of boxing in 1996, says he didn't diagnose him with HIV. How about that? Then I contacted the lab. Yeah, I contacted the lab in Las Vegas, and they said, well, we didn't diagnose him with HIV either.
Oh,
and
my
so
God.
I got copies of his physical that he did in 1996. He passed it with flying colors. I've actually got a copy now of the doctor in Las Vegas signing off on the physical, telling the commission, the Nevada Commission, that he's fit for a license to box. So all these things have been coming out since Tommy passed away. But in addition, the blood autopsy also came back with no HIV, none at all. And this is using, you know, a huge microscope. It's called an electron microscope that actually goes into your blood and it images any virus in there and no HIV in there. So you can't die of AIDS if you don't have HIV. And he had that test done twice, one in Boston and one in Omaha, Nebraska. And then today I get confirmation from one of the test kit companies that he was given, and they said, well, you know, it doesn't detect HIV virus or infection anyway. So anybody that's listening that listened a couple of years ago to him, he wasn't crazy. He wasn't in denial. If the Vegas doctor of 96 said, hey, I didn't diagnose him with HIV, he did not have HIV. And I wish he were here today to actually see all this stuff that he had been working on. So that's pretty shocking news, isn't it?
No, it's completely earth-shattering news. I mean, this is a guy who was on the top of his game, was the athlete. I mean, he was the epitome of what an athlete should look like. And we've known about his trials and tribulations. We saw how he went from the man that he was to being in jail and then having to deal with these demons thinking that he had HIV and thinking that he had AIDS all this time.
Right.
The problem that I have with all this is the fact that as soon as he was diagnosed with AIDS, or HIV, I should say, I'm sorry, is that the mass media picked up on this, and this is the biggest story where he immediately had to do a press conference. But with all the different facts, like you just spoke about, and what he spoke about when he was on our show, I don't understand how no one picks up on this. I mean, even if this let's just say they were skeptical and there was just an inkling of truth behind this, and no one investigates this, none of the Sports Illustrateds or the Fox Sports. Right. Why are they not looking into this?
Exactly. Why aren't they looking into this? I mean, the very first flag really should be, why would you be flown out of Las Vegas without the doctor sitting in front of you, telling you and showing you on a piece of paper that you had a virus? That never happened. He was told he was HIV positive in a hotel room by a promoter. Now, that again is against the HIPAA law, first of all, right?
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, Tommy's focus was always in the ring fighting. You know, he never dealt with the money side. He never dealt with the flight arrangements or any of that. And he didn't even put together the press conference himself. But, yes, the media picked up on it. It was one of the biggest stories in 96, in fact, all the way through until he died. And then suddenly when he died and the autopsy came back, no virus, there was a hush, a complete hush. Nobody will pick up on it. You know, Larry King had him on his show, all these people. But, you know, well, wait a minute. Actually, he never got diagnosed in 96. The doctor's telling me that today. And it's not only the doctor that's telling me that, it's the doctor's attorney that's telling me that. So Tommy never was diagnosed with HIV. Never. He never had it. Never had it at all in his system. So you tell me why the media will not bring that out in the news. Why am I not on the Larry King show or Fox News or ESPN telling them the story today? Why is that?
Has anyone reached out to you since his passing? Any major news outlet?
No. And to be quite honest with you, when I got confirmation of another dot that Tommy had been trying to collect, that was December 21 and December 23rd of 2013. That's not so long ago.
Yeah.
All right. But when the actual doctor tells me, well, I never diagnosed him, then that started making me think, well, wait a minute. You know, there is a story here that we need to uncover. And so I'm going from dot to dot and finding out all kinds of information. And the media are just being too quiet about it. Too quiet.
Now, do you have all this stuff as far as written proof that maybe you can post on a website that maybe people will be able to look at and say, wow, I see it in written proof now.
I do.
Now we have to start this whole investigation into this.
Yeah, I do. And it's actually on Tommy's Facebook page, which I keep going. And it's on there every time I pull it up. You know, but people say, well, let him rest in peace. And it's like, whoa, you know what? Since 1996, the three letters HIV has been a household word. And the reason why he got into drugs, the reason why he ended up in jail is because he thought he was going to die. He thought he had this deadly disease. You know, when you're told you're going to die by the time you get to your car, then it's the stigma that actually gets to you. It's not the disease, so-called disease, that he was actually never diagnosed with. Because he was in perfect condition. You know, you see all the pictures of him right the way through until 1996. And then you see the dark years from 96 onwards, and that's when he turned to fill a void in his life. And that's what he writes about in his second book, My Darkest Years. It tells everybody what he went through, and it's pretty horrendous.
Now, when did you actually meet Tommy?
I met, or he met me. He met me in 2009 in Wichita, Kansas. He had actually been invited to be a celebrity in Kansas, and he was staying at the hotel that I was working at, and it was at the same time as a film festival. And we actually got invited to it, and the other guest in the hotel said, hey, we'd like you two to come along because actually Tommy's in this movie. And I said to Tommy, hey, you're in a movie. He said, yeah, I know, I'm in Rocky V. And I said, no, you're in something else. And so we went to the premiere of it, and it's called House of Numbers. And it's all about people actually that have been diagnosed with HIV that never had it. And he sat there with his mouth wide open all the way through this documentary, House of Numbers. And he looked at me, he said, everybody thinks I'm crazy, but there's a whole bunch of people out there that have been going through what I've been going through. And that's how we met.
So now I'm assuming once you realize who he is, you start Googling him and you're like, wow, according to the internet, this guy's got AIDS. What's that first conversation like?
Well, I was actually in Vegas in '96. I was working for a British airline that was bringing in tourists into Las Vegas. And there was one particular weekend where I couldn't get any hotel rooms. And it was because of a fight between a Morrison and some guy called Weathers. And I thought, out of all the weekends, I can't get any rooms for my tourists. So I had to cancel that flight into Vegas. And since '96, it's always bothered me that somebody could ruin tourism so badly. And so when suddenly I get the rooming list for this Morrison guy checking into my hotel, I'm thinking, God, I wonder if it's the same guy. So I Googled him, and I thought, oh, boy. I read all these things on the Internet, and I thought, fine. Shall I give this guy the worst room in the hotel because I think it's him? Or just take care of him like a normal person here. And actually got to meet him after we went to that House of Numbers event, and we started our relationship from there. And the first thing I said to him was, Tommy, I am not into drugs. I'm not a stripper. I don't hang out at bars, and I haven't got any tattoos, right? So I'm not the right person for you. And he looked at me and he said, you're just the right person for me. And that's how we started our relationship. And then, of course, you read about AIDS and everything that I had been taught or read, it was like, oh, my goodness. And then I started to do my own research. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but, you start to connect the dots. And I looked at him, and I looked at his blood results. I looked at his physical. I listened to every interview he did. I did my own research. I sent out my own emails to everybody asking for an answer back, and nothing seemed to make sense. So for Tommy, it was like he doesn't have what they say he's got. So I just carried on researching with him. And today, 2014, we were right.
So when you're actually having those conversations with him, when's the first time at that point in your relationship that you actually have sex with him unprotected, with no worries of having HIV? Or no, seriously, like is it within the first year?
Right.
Is it within the second year? Like when do you feel comfortable enough?
When did trust set in?
Yeah, when did the trust set in? It's a perfect analogy right there.
Yeah, when did the trust set in? Almost immediately, actually. And for whoever's listening, this is supposed to be sexually transmissible. Well, I don't have HIV, and to the best of my knowledge, none of the women he ever slept with, or even his ex-wives or children, have HIV. I mean, that's up to them to say, right? HIPAA laws and everything, but no problem at all. I mean, I started to research it and couldn't find anything that gave me proof that he ever had it.
Wow. So you've had multiple times unprotected sex, and you've had when was the last test you had?
2010.
So since then, you've never been tested for HIV?
Right, but, what test are you going to give me? The only test that I would actually go and get to see if I've got a virus would be with the electron microscope anyway. And you can get that test done.
Did you do that last time?
No, I didn't do that last time. No. And actually went ahead and just got one of the regular tests that you think detects HIV virus and HIV infection, and come to find out it doesn't. So that would be the only test that I would actually go for, would be the electron microscope now anyway.
So it never even crossed your mind, though, at this point, though, to even one of the over-the-counter tests, just to see what would happen based on all the background of this whole story. And since 2010, I mean, that's almost 4 years ago. There's nothing that ever, no skepticism in your mind that made you say, "Let me just take
no,
a test.
the,
Let
o-
me just
the
see what
only right. The only skepticism was the actual test. Which test do you go and get to detect it? And every time I emailed somebody, they said, well, our test doesn't detect the virus or infection anyway. And, you go to the pharmacy and you see something on the shelf there, and you call up the company and you go, well, I want to know if I've got a virus in me. And they go, well, we can't actually say. This test doesn't really detect that. So where do you go from there, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What is the biggest misconception of Tommy Morrison?
In what way?
In any way, what's the biggest misconception, or what's the stupidest thing you've ever seen written about him?
I think the most stupidest thing I ever saw written about him was ESPN writing that he had AIDS, and that's the most stupidest thing I've ever seen. There's a lot of boxing sites and a lot of fans that just write awesome stuff about him. But, when it came down to the HIV/AIDS thing, it was, first of all, how can everybody be talking about something like this without seeing proof? And that was my very first question, actually, to Tommy is, well, if you've got HIV and you were diagnosed with it in '96, show me the results, show me the proof on paper that you have this terrible disease that they say you've got. And he couldn't show me. And I couldn't get a copy, and he couldn't get a copy. And then the other stupidest thing I saw written about him was this woman in Las Vegas called Dr. Margaret Goodman, who ruined his comeback in 2007 by saying, well, I went to Quest Labs and I retrieved a copy of your results and you're unequivocally got HIV. And, since then we contacted the lab. They said, well, first of all, we don't diagnose and we don't have a copy anyway. And thirdly, it was, we'd never give it to another doctor anyway, and she was never your doctor. So, there's stupid things. I mean, I want to put the truth out.
Yeah.
And the truth has come out. It's everybody's hearsay. It's like, well, Magic Johnson doesn't have it, blah, blah, blah. That's up to Magic Johnson to come out with it. But as far as Tommy goes, I'm talking about Tommy's story. He was never diagnosed with it, never had it, never died from it. And I have proof. If you take your kid to a doctor and the doctor says to you, well, he's got a broken arm, you would say, well, can you show me the x-ray? And the doctor says, sure, here's the x-ray, that's where it's broken. Well, the same goes for an HIV virus test. It's like, well, show me the virus. Show me the virus in my body, or show me that it's not there. And it was proven that he never had it.
Well, the one thing that I know a lot of people are going to be asking is that on the death certificate, what was the listed cause of death?
Cardiac arrest, 41 minutes prior to death, and I was there, okay? Septic shock, 24 hours prior. Multi-organ failure, 24 hours prior. And Pseudomonas aeruginosa, whatever it's called, septicemia, which was caused by the wound, and that was 24 hours prior. That's what they put down on the death certificate. The Pseudomonas, that was discovered in 1822. So it's got nothing to do with HIV/AIDS, which was invented in 1984. So, that's one thing that I've been putting up with is people saying, oh, well, he had an AIDS-related disease. It's like, no, he didn't. The only time he contracted this Pseudomonas was from his chest wound, and that's how it all began because of that septic 12 foot of surgical gauze tightly packed in his chest. Now, you've never seen Tommy Morrison cry in the ring, right? When he had broken jaws, broken hand, broken ribs. Have you ever seen him cry in the ring?
No, never.
No. Well, when that nurse that morning pulled out 12 foot of heavy packed surgical gauze in his chest, he cried.
Jesus. Wow. I mean, this is some really heavy stuff right now. I mean, I'm getting a lot of stuff here on our Twitter and Facebook. And one
really?
One person said, I think if he stayed out of trouble and off of drugs, people may have taken him more seriously, and he could have found out if he really had it. Part of me is starting to believe all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, whoever tweeted that or emailed that needs to read his book, because he wasn't on drugs and he wasn't in trouble until he was given this false diagnosis. And in fact, it's not even a false diagnosis, it's a non-diagnosis, if that word even exists.
So what about that story he told us about transporting himself? Do you think that was actually reality? Right. Or tell us the background on that. Give us the truth behind that.
Well, yeah, I wasn't there, obviously, when that happened. You know, I've heard and read other people having similar, you know, experiences. But I think that's just another thing that somebody has blown up, right, and put out in the media just to make him look crazy, just to make him look as though he's in denial of reality. But I'm sure, you know, maybe he blacked out and found himself outside of wherever it was. But you know, everybody's made that such a big story. Why?
Yeah. You know what? I think it's just because it's different from what the norm is, and anyone who hears different than the norm is a little nervous, and you know, they blow it up out of proportion.
But you know, what is the norm? I mean, would you go into a ring and become a 2-time heavyweight champion and take all the punches to the head? I mean,
I wish.
That's not norm.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't made that way.
Yeah, I wish. In a sense, I wish I was. In a sense, I wish I wasn't, because, like I said before we had you on the air, like this guy was like my idol. I mean, I remember back in the day, we had the illegal cable boxes like everyone else did, but it just stopped working. And I think that was when I was 13 years old, whatever I was. That was the first time I worked for $2 an hour and gave my mom the money to order that pay-per-view to see him box George Foreman. I wanted to see that fight. And
that is so neat.
I love Tommy. We have his autographed Rocky V cover in the studio here. He's a great man, and you know, it's
well, you know, he was a great, kind man. You know, the only stories people ever hear are what, you know, the media wants to put out there. They select the stories. Well, instead of selecting, why don't they report the story, right? And you know, he would sit and watch TV and watch Fox News and watch other people fight. And you know, his favorite meal was a bacon and egg sandwich. He's just a regular guy, right? Yeah. And you know, our son reminded me of this yesterday when he came around, and he said, "Mom, you know, I tell people about the story when Tommy walked up to this guy in California. He was a young kid trying to hitch a ride, and his pants were right down by his knees, you know, how they wear them. And he walked up to this kid and he said, how do you think anybody's ever going to pick you up and take you to L.A. when your pants are hanging down by your ankles, right?
Wow.
He said, pull them up and then you'll get a ride. You know, just a regular
Tommy Morrison hates
guy.
wiggers. That's funny.
And
That's
just
funny.
I mean, loved animals. Animals loved him.
Did he buy monkeys and lions like we heard rumors of?
Yeah. It's in his second book, My Darkest Years. He had some chimps and he had some cougars that he wrestled with and a pet squirrel. You'll love it. You know, you'll love the
hold on. What does he do with his pet squirrel?
He rescued it. It was lying beside the road, and he picked it up and rescued it and took it home and made a home for it by the curtains, and he would feed it.
Did it have a name?
No, he didn't name it, but he named the chimps. But you'll have to read the book to find out the names of the chimps.
Well, let's talk about the book real quick. TommyTheDukeMorrison.com in order to order. So now that there's going to be a trilogy of books here?
Yeah, he wrote 2 3/4. They're paperback books, and the first one he wrote is My Boxing Career, and it's every fight he had and what he felt like in the ring, what he felt like afterwards, his perspective. You can actually hear him talking to you. And it's 44 pages, but it's full of excitement and how he felt. And then the second book is called My Darkest Years, and that was when he was kicked out of boxing, and he goes into the drugs and the women and everything. You just very, very interesting, sad, roller coaster type of life. And then the third book, paperback book, is called My Unfinished Business. And he wrote 3/4 of it. And I'll be finishing off the last couple of pages, especially with backup from the doctor. Everything that I've got in writing is going to be in that book.
Wow.
And that'll be at the end of, middle or end of 2014.
So now a lot of people, they use ghostwriters. I'm assuming, from what I heard, is he dictated these books to you and you just typed them out.
Yeah. No ghostwriter here. This is him. This is all him, his language, his story. And I tell you, it wasn't easy getting a 2-time heavyweight champion to sit down and tell his story. But he would go and sit in the car, and he would tape stuff and then bring it back in, and then I would type it out, and then I would have him proofread it and choose the photographs, and it was quite something. I'm sure that Mike Tyson's wife probably had the same problem with Mike, right, writing his book. But the words, the way he writes, he was pretty brilliant. Actually,
wow.
Really, when you read his words, he was very articulate and just great with the way he expressed stuff.
So what happens to you now? What happens to Trisha? I mean, you have this horrible loss in your life. How do you go on? What is your plans for the future? Talk to us.
Yeah, well, I will be finishing connecting the dots for him. That's something that he wanted to do, and I'm going to finish it. And it's almost done. I've got, I'd say, 1.5 more dots, and then it's all connected. And then hopefully he'll be able to rest in peace, just so long as somebody comes out with it. And there's people that want to do a documentary on him. And I told them, if we do one, it's got to tell everything. It's got to tell the whole story. It can't leave out this HIV thing. It cannot. It's got to have all the proof there. And that is his story. That is his life. And I actually spoke to Boom Boom Mancini the other day. He brought out a great documentary, The Good Son, I think it's called.
It was
excellent. Excellent, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was absolutely.
Yeah, and I've got his whole life here with me. I've got his belts, except for the one that was stolen. His George Foreman belt was stolen.
Really?
And some idiot came over to the opening of the gym in Wichita and said that he would refurbish it for him and make it look good. And then next thing is it's gone. Right, he takes it and then wants to charge us for it. Right, he wants to charge us $2,500 to get it back, and we don't have that money.
What a
so
dick.
The guy still got it, or he's eBayed it, or something. And basically he said, the reason why I'm not giving it back to you is because you've got HIV and you're lying about it. And it's like, what? So
what
you can imagine
this
HIV thing has affected his whole life, kicked him out of society, and just
stole his belt.
Every stab. People didn't want to breathe the same air as him, that's why I've got to clear it up. I've got to clear it up and show on paper that, hey, this is legitimately what really happened.
Wow.
So that's what's happening with me.
And it's an amazing story.
It would be like ESPN has those 30 for 30 stories. Like, this is tailor-made for
that. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening. Yeah. I don't see it happening.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't want ESPN to do it. And if they called me tomorrow and said we want to do a story, I'd go, you know what? Tommy actually wasn't very happy with the first story you did. And the second, where you bring this thing out where he's in denial a week before he dies and stirs it all up again, I don't think it's fair. So ESPN definitely would not get my vote on it. And he was not very happy with the ESPN writers anyway when he was alive. There's a couple of writers that he said, he didn't want to do interviews with at all. So,
what's crazy about this is I actually know a lot of different documentarians that do a lot of documentaries, and I just think this should be really documented somewhere in film history. And after we get off the air, we're going to talk about this between me and you. We have some ideas here. I have people that work in the entertainment industry. This needs to be told. The story needs to be told. Tommy's legacy needs to be upheld. And, he was a great individual. The interview we had with him was great, and the correspondence we had with him after. Yeah. And he emailed us, and he texted us, and he was such a great individual. We actually have a couple of different callers on the line. Want to ask some questions? Let's give them some time real quick. We have Sally from Texas. Sally, you're on the line.
Hi, thank you for sharing your story. I'm interested in the third book. So if there was to be maybe a movie and not necessarily a documentary, who would you want to do it? Make it, star in it?
Well, you know what? He has got a couple of great kids that look just like him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he really does, and I think that they would be good as acting as Tommy. So that would be my take. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And then you would have some involvement?
I didn't know.
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Would you have some involvement in the movie?
Would I? You know what? I
She should. Why wouldn't she?
I probably would, because in the years that I knew him, he told me his whole life. And after you read those 3 books, he was probably the most sober and level-headed in the last 6 years of his life, telling me all about the good stuff, the bad stuff, the drugs. One reason why we went to Tennessee was so that he could do drug rehab, and he passed it. And it was like a kid coming home from school with great grades. He showed me. He said, I could do it. I did it. He wanted to be on that celebrity rehab program, but you know what? They had one spot left for him, but they didn't take him, and guess why? Because they said he had HIV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
But that's not the best place to get sober anyway. You're better off without that show.
Well, he never got accepted because of so-called being diagnosed HIV in 96.
Oh, my God. So they reached out to him on Celebrity Rehab, and they wanted him to come on, and they just denied him for being HIV positive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
This poor guy.
So he did rehab in Tennessee, and he got off everything. You know, he had huge trouble with drugs and prescription Adderall and putting those two together.
Do you think that was because of the HIV diagnosis? Do you think that's where it all stems from?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It started right from there. And again, you'll read that in his second paperback book. That's it. When you get kicked out of society, kicked out of boxing, and nobody wants to talk to you or be in the same room as you, you know, it's pretty dark.
Especially when everybody wanted to be in that same room with you and wanted a piece of you back in the day.
Yeah.
So those 3 books are The Boxing Career. My Boxing Career is book 1.
Was Tommy was he related to John Wayne at all? As far as the Duke goes,
yeah.
Was What was that relation?
Yeah. The great-grandnephew of the Duke. And actually, Tommy was 50% Native American Indian as well. So his comeback, we spoke about it quite often. His comeback was going to be more Indian orientated as opposed to being, the so-called Great White Hope. He was going to come back with some kind of an Indian in him. So, yeah.
We got Tina from New York. Tina,
wow.
Tina, go ahead.
Hello?
Tina, I can't hear you. Are you there?
Hi. Was it true that he was married to two women at the same time?
Yes, it was, and that's in his book too. So,
so he was married to someone at the same time as you?
No, not the same time as me. No, this goes back to the 90s. Yeah.
Okay.
So get the book. You'll find out exactly how it happened.
Get the book at TommyTheDukeMorrison.com. Let's go to Brendan in New York. Brendan, you're on the line.
Yeah, I was just wondering how much the book was going to cost and are autographed copies available?
The first book, My Boxing Career, has his autograph stamped on the back already. And the second book has his autograph printed on the front page. So the third book also has one of the photographs with his signature on there.
Well, so nothing authentic.
No, well, there's a few books I've got left that do actually have his signature. Yeah, so I'm keeping those for a while.
Oh. All right, well, thank you there, Brendan. And Trisha, we want everyone to check out TommyTheDukeMorrison.com to buy these books, support the cause, and to keep up to date with everything that you do in the name of Tommy Morrison. You're a beautiful person.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people right now, they follow Twitter. Are you guys on Twitter at all with the movement in mind?
No, not much into tweeting. We're on Facebook, and that's one thing that Tommy did. He religiously answered back to all his fans on Facebook or text or email. So, but we'll be updating the website as well once we've got all the dots connected, and hopefully working on that documentary too.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. And like I said, everyone, we need to go to TommyTheDukeMorrison.com. 3 books, 2 are available now. Right now, you get My Boxing Career and My Darkest Years. Check it out. You can order it direct on the website. Buy it now. It's like $20. It's totally worth it. And it's an amazing journey into a man's life and a man's boxing career. A man like no other, Tommy the Duke Morrison. Trisha, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
All right. I appreciate it because I know that, if Tommy was here, he would have done this interview again with you guys because he really did enjoy it. And I just remember that night as if it was tonight. So I appreciate it. And thanks very much.
Well, thank you. We'll be in touch. Take care, honey.
All right, sweetie. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
I got a sweetie.
You did get a sweetie.
I like her.
No, she's obviously a decent woman.
A very decent woman.